I'm going to give this about 5 minutes and see if anybody pops on, and then I'll get started. Be right back. All righty. So I am posting in the chat. If anybody comes on, you're welcome to ask questions and make comments while this video records. Give it a couple more minutes here. I think I had it scheduled for 1:50. If you hear a lot of things in the background, I'm outside, and of course, still working from home, and I'm gonna have neighbors come out. Maybe a lawnmower or two that started up. So I'll do the best I can to keep this short and brief. Just give me 1 second. My other job is chiming in too, and I want to make sure that I give you my full and undivided attention during this quote unquote fireside chat. All right, put my phone on silent. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. It looks like I said, this is a live stream. This is the first time I'm really trying to use this for the class. Hopefully it'll catch on, and as I do future videos over the next several weeks, more people will have an opportunity to log on and interface with me directly. I'm sorry for the lack of heads up. It's been a crazy week work-wise. I've been working on a lot of stuff for my primary job. But anyway, that's no excuse. I've just had some time management issues for this week. Let me turn off notifications here real quick. I thought I had that completed. I'm going to, okay, I'm going to say get notifications off for the meantime. Okay, here we go. All right, so we're on the second week of the fiction. And this is a great, great story to talk about, especially with everything that's going on in the country right now. This is a piece by Toni Morrison, a wonderful, wonderful author. If you've never read any of her other stuff before, she's right up there with Maya Angelou in my book as far as capturing the beauty of the African American culture and the thoughts and emotions that have been present within the community since the country was founded, even going back before the country was founded. Toni Morrison lived during the time of the civil rights struggle. She encountered a lot of racism in her time, unfortunately, and but she tried to use those experiences to positively affect people. not just only within the African American community, but with all communities throughout this great land. She tried to weave a common thread, especially with the story that we're going to be looking at here in a few minutes. Um, like I said, Toni Morrison's um, short story Recitatif, I think is coming at the perfect time, for everything that's going on throughout this country. Now, I'm not going to go on a long um, tirade and discourse about the problems that's going on in the country. Everybody's got their opinions as far as what's driving it. I think, ever since 2020 started, we've been going from one crisis to another. There's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty right now, and it's just exacerbating the situation to the point where people just feel like they're not being heard. They're not other people are not listening to them. They feel like they've fallen through the cracks. Many of them have fallen through the cracks, and um, so having said all that, for you, my students, how can I use this as a teaching tool? Well, number one, I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. I would really wish I was in a position outside of just being a college professor on a part-time basis, being able to share my perspective and maybe impart some lessons learned from my own life to help people deal with the situations that we're going through right now and being able to make something positive out of that. Um, but I can tell you this, I'm going to backtrack and talk a little bit about Plato again with the cave example and how that can apply not only to Toni Morrison's Recitatif, but also about the situation that we're going through right now. So here's my perspective on that. As I'm reading the news and watching the TV coverage, um, it appears to me that we're still stuck in this train of thought that we as individuals, our own experiences and our own perspectives on reality, whether you mean to or not, myself included, we're all guilty of this, somehow takes precedent over everyone else. And I think that's just part of the human condition in that we are entrapped within these bodies, and the experiences that we have, even though we share experiences with one another, they become personal. And our own perspective on the quote unquote reality of the situation comes to the forefront. And we tend to stand on that in an argument and say, this is the way it is. And at the same time, we're discounting what other people are seeing. Okay. So if I think back to Plato's viewpoint, in that we are all prisoners in a cave, okay? And we're all chained to this wall, and we're living our lives viewing this image of reality on the wall opposite from us, which is an absolute reflection of what's coming in from the outside world, the real situation, okay? That image of or that thing that's going on is reflecting off the wall, and our own experiences, our own biases, our own perspectives are distorting that image. And it's not until you break away from that cave, from that prison, and free your mind and have courage enough to, one, listen to the perspectives that other people have regarding the reality of the situation, that image on the wall, but also to have the courage to seek the truth and to leave the prison leave the cave and step out into the light and really see the situation from a totally different perspective, hopefully seeing the truth of what that situation really is. Now, how do I apply that to what's going on now? Well, we are all, as I said, we all have our own personal experiences. We have our own individual thoughts, and we view the reality of the situation in this country right now, and we automatically skew it and put a bias to it. I mean, that's a natural thing to do because, as Plato says, we're all trapped into this way of thinking, okay, and viewing the world a certain way. What I've tried to do over the past couple of weeks is to step back, how we got to this point and how we can make it better. And at the end of the day, I think the only thing we can do most of the time when we hit situations like this is, number one, stop talking. And what do I mean by that? Not having a conversation with other people? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, instead of having that first reaction to a situation and immediately saying, oh, this is what's going on, stop. Take a breath and listen. Free yourself from the cave, metaphorically speaking, break outside of that comfort zone and try your best to fully grasp the reality of the situation by reading different sources, by watching different news programs, and even more importantly, talking to people, listening, understanding, not only sharing your experiences, but stopping long enough and listening to what other people are going through and fully grasping the reality of the situation and taking all of those conversations that you're having with different people. Those conversations become pieces to the puzzle. And you take one and you fit it with another, and you keep going and going and going until you're on your way to fully grasping the reality of the situation. And you're stepping outside of that cave and you're allowing yourself to fully grasp the reality of the situation. So, having said all that, let's look at Toni Morrison's perspective. Okay, so this is a wonderful short story. Again, I'm going to treat this like I did last week. I'm not going to, for those who haven't read it yet or are still maybe having problems getting the textbook, this is a spoiler-free episode. But let's talk about the characters, okay? And the first question I always get is about what's going on with the characters here, okay? Toni Morrison, master, wonderfully masks the identity, the true identity, even the racial identity of these characters for a reason. Why? Well, you have two characters, and what we do know is they do come from different racial backgrounds, but they start off in a very similar situation. Okay, according to the plot in the beginning of the story, they start off in an orphanage. Okay, they both come from home lives that were very troubled. Their mothers had a hard time taking care of them, hence the reason why they're in this orphanage. And what more do we know about them? Well, we do know that they come from different races, but looking past that, they're coming from similar situations. They're coming from situations for children which are very unstable, which impacts their perspective. Okay, so Toni Morrison really focuses on character development more than plot in this story, in the wonderful complexities of these characters. As you read through the tale or the short story, you're constantly forced to analyze character, okay? And analyzing the words that they're using and describing the situations that are going on, and also trying to figure out what their motives are. You have Roberta and you have Twyla. One character is more stable, it seems like, as they mature and get older. The other one tends to go through a hardship as a result of coming from that starting point in the orphanage. Um, and I think the other wonderful thing is Toni Morrison uses a plot device that is very postmodern. And what do I mean by that? Well, it is a linear story. Okay, so we start off with Roberta and Twyla in the orphanage, um, and you get that snippet, and then all of a sudden it jumps to another point in time when their paths cross again, and then another point in time later on when their paths cross again. So instead of it following a very strict linear pattern, it still is chronological, but these are snippets, moments in time as these young children mature and grow older and have various, diverse life experiences, and how they interact with one another, how they still engage one another. Now, one of the questions I want you to ask yourself about Roberta and Twyla in the discussion board, and if you choose to write about it in your paper, are these characters, how similar are they and how dissimilar are they from the start of the story to the end conversation? Mainly revolving around the treatment of one of the workers in that orphanage. Okay, I'll clue in on that. Both of them remember that situation very, very differently. Okay, and having looked at that and analyzing the characters, I also want you to discuss how their attitudes change about the life experiences they're having. Do they do they engage with one another differently? And if so, how? How do they engage with one another differently? Especially after some critical life experiences. And you can see that as you step through these snippets in time, you can see these characters mature in different ways and deal with things in different ways. Um, so that's one thing that I would like for you to focus on. The other thing is looking at the plot. Okay, how does Toni Morrison's plot device in allowing you to see these snapshots in time, how does that change your perspective on these characters? Okay, so as I said before, you can have a perfectly strict linear timeline to where you see every stopping point on that road map. In seeing that, you're able to kind of take a first person viewpoint with these characters and kind of see how they got to this point. With Morrison, it's a little different because these snapshots in time are in variable lengths in between. You don't know what the experiences are in between those snippets in time. You can kind of infer, but it does create an uncomfortableness with some readers as far as being able to really connect with the characters when you're getting to this point where you're in these snippets. Okay, so looking at that device, What do you think Morrison's, what are her motivations for using that kind of a plot device? That could be an also, that's another interesting question that can be analyzed. Um, in addition to that, theme, okay, themes and motifs that are present. Okay, so we do have um, themes and motifs that are very emotionally based. Okay, there are some racial undertones there. Um, there are some socioeconomical themes and motifs that are present in the work. Also, the interactivity between people from different ethnic backgrounds, right? Looking at those snippets over time, how does, I guess one of the things I'd like for you to look at if you're going to focus in on theme is how does Roberta's perspective change and what motifs can be drawn upon that can demonstrate that versus Twyla? Okay, because these two have characters did evolve and grow differently within this tale. In using those motifs, how can you explain the difference between those two? Um, and then I think more importantly, and I'm hoping I see this discussion when I start engaging with the discussion board this weekend. How does this story change your perspective in dealing with the situation that's going on now? But more importantly, interacting and sharing thoughts and opinions with people who come from a different background, whether it be an different ethnic background or economic background. There's all of us have things to learn. And it amazes me that for adults have the biggest problem with this issue versus children. That could be another thing that you could look at, even in the story, how the characters interacted with one another as children versus adults. And if you notice, children don't have these prejudices, they don't have these biases, they don't have these perspectives thrown on them, and it is such a natural state to see children, especially in a school or a pre-K environment, because I have a pre-K kid, interact naturally with people from different backgrounds. And it's such a wonderful, hopeful thing to see that, because they don't have a clue. They don't care. All they care about is having fun with that person, enjoying the time that they're spending with that person, versus an adult who, through life experiences, through, um, biases and thoughts that are either formed on those life experiences or maybe introduced externally, tend to get away from that natural environment of people coming together and enjoying one another's time, helping one another, interacting one another in a positive way, and allowing those life experiences and biases and prejudices to take away from that. As adults, it's become more commonplace, and you see that more commonplace than you do with the younger kids. And it's such a sad situation to be in, and to knowing that we all have these personal life experiences that if we would stop and share with one another and listen to other people's life experiences, how much we could grow as a people together. And I think that's one of the things that Toni Morrison really wanted to focus on when she wrote Recitatif. She wanted to blur the lines, and not to the point to erase them, but blur them enough to where you really stop and sit back and you look at your perspective and ask hard questions about, do I really have the right perspective on life? Do I have the right perspective on dealing with hard situations? And do I have the right perspective when I am interacting with other people, not only from my own background, but from different backgrounds? Okay. And those are uncomfortable. Those are hard questions that need to be answered. We all have to do that. And the one thing that I will say in relation to what's going on now, if we don't stop and analyze our perspectives and really identify how we're interacting with other people, and if we're doing it in a negative way, change that. In other words, break free from that being chained to that wall. Don't allow yourself to be boxed into a situation where you react to everyone or every situation the same way. If you can't live and grow and change your perspective over time, what's the point? What is the point? And I think that's what Plato, that's a great message that Plato wanted to pass down to generations that came after him. Perspectives don't have to be chained to a wall. They can grow and change over time through the pursuit of the truth. The truth doesn't lie in that, within that prison. It lies in seeking what's going on in reality, understanding the truth, getting into the light, and truly understanding what's going on. Not only within your micro world, but in the world around you. All right, so those are my thoughts on not only the situation at hand, but also Toni Morrison and how we can use Toni Morrison's thoughts, the themes and the motifs that are present within the work. Not only that, but analyzing the characters and how their attitudes change from the time that they were children to the time that they become adults. How do those attitudes affect their ability to interact with one another, specifically Roberta and Twyla? And I think if you really stop and take a moment to truly analyze these characters, do some outside reading. I definitely encourage that. Go out and look at some outside reading and see what other scholars have said about these characters. But more importantly, what are your thoughts? And how do analyzing the way that these characters interact with one another, how has it affected your perspective on your own life? And can it make a change on how you deal with situations and how you interact with other people? Right? Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. So how do we take care of one another? How do we treat one another? And how do we grow together as a people? I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing to look at when you're analyzing Recitatif and analyzing Toni Morrison's allegorical meaning for those works, or for that work, for those characters in that work. Okay. All right. Well, nobody was able to come on the chat. That's okay. This was a exercise for me to get used to doing a live environment. I will go live again. In fact, I will go live in all of my videos. And what I'll do is I will send out an email letting you know when those videos will go live. Okay. I will do better about coming back next week and talking about Bradbury's The Veldt on Wednesday. Okay. So having said that, you guys enjoy this story. Enjoy your weekend. And in addition to having some fun, I hope you're able to step back and take a moment and look at your perspective and on the world and on the situation that we're in right now. And I hope that you're able to grow as I'm trying to grow and listen to other people's perspectives and utilizing that not only to grow internally here, but grow as a people. Because I think we need that now more than ever right now. And I thank Miss Toni Morrison, wonderful author who passed away, I think it was last year. Thank her for this story. It's a wonderful, wonderful example on how people, their attitudes and their perspectives can influence and sometimes inhibit people's ability to interact with one another and to understand what other people are going through. All right. So, having said all that, I hope you guys have a great weekend. As soon as this video compiles, I'll post the link on Blackboard. And like I said, the next time I go live, I will actually have a heads up for you guys. I'll send you an email, let you know what the link's going to be, because I'll schedule it ahead of time. And we'll chat again, and hopefully we'll have some questions and comments in the live chat next time. All right. So you guys have a great weekend. Stay safe. Coronavirus is still out there. Stay healthy. And we will talk to you again next week. All right. Take care.